Okay, no, I was just trying to usher people in and encourage them. Okay, so our panel now is about working women in the Julian March after both world wars. And we start our session with Matteo Perissinotto and his talk about women employees of the Italian administration in the Julian March, 1918 to 1922. Matteo collaborates on the Irene Project, and he received his doctorate in history from the University of Trieste in 2016. From 2013 to 2016, he was involved in the project Der Erste Weltkrieg und die Konflikte der europäischen Nachkriegsordnung 1914 to 1923 at the Zentrum für Antisemitismusforschung in Berlin. He is the managing editor of the review Quest, Issues in Contemporary Jewish History, and a member of the scientific committee of the exhibitions 1938 La Storia and 1938 La Memoria, curated by Sara Berga and Marcello Pezzetti. The podium is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dagmar. Yeah? No?
No.
Now it will. Okay, thank you very much. In this speech, I will examine three categories of female employees of the Italian administration in the post-war period in the Julian March: office workers, cleaning ladies, and guards. Given their predominant presence and particular characteristics, female office employees will play a central role in this analysis. The choice to focus on female staff offers the opportunity to analyze not only the labor market in the public sector, but also allows a privileged vision of the administrative and cultural transformations that involve not only legislation, but also the image and roles of women within society and working world. This research was born from the study of more than 300 files of the staff of the Regio Governatorato, then Commissariato Civile per la Venezia Giulia, the body established by Italy during the transition phase to the annexion of Trieste to Italy, from November 1918 to the end of 1922. From these files, we cannot derive statistical series given the fragmentary nature of the data and the gaps in the documentation. However, they give us an overview of the different experience of employees throughout the region. These data have been cross-referenced with the newspapers of the time published in Trieste. What emerges in the difference between centers, Trieste, Gorizia, and Pula, and the peripheral office? In such a complex area, from a linguistic, ethnic, and national point of view, the Italian authorities immediately tried to identify those who were considered dangerous for the administration and the future annexation of the region to the kingdom. The population, especially in small towns, on the other hand, was more attentive to moral aspects. That is, the relation woven by the employees with their colleagues and the military, and the soldiers, and the lifestyle of the signorine, ladies. A second aspect to highlight is the type of control implemented on female personnel. As we shall see, women were not considered as emancipated subjects from a national and political point of view, but were daughters of or wives of. We are therefore faced with a clear reduction in women's emancipation and autonomy in the field of work and rights compared to the laws of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. From the moral point of view, however, they were considered directly responsible for the rumors and gossips that revolved about them, even if not true. With the end of the conflict, there were an important substitution in the state apparatus, in particular in managerial position, while the tasks of ordinary administration, such as secretary, copyist, archivist, and typist, were to a lesser extent affected by the substitution. It should be pointed out, however, that some female employees were forced to follow the family migrations, which continued in the 20s. This was because some of them were with other citizenship or non-resident of the non-pertinenti that we talked before, of the region and were therefore expelled during the first month of the occupation. The reconfirmation service of the so-called officials of the secede regime, as well the new recruits, went through periodical phases of checks by the Italian authorities, which examined mainly three issues: national, political, and moral. The word affidabilità, reliability, tended to include two aspects, national and political. Even if the official had not been Italian, but Slovenian, Croatian, Slav, or German, it was not in itself sufficient information to exclude her from her post, because this information was crossed with that relating to political reliability. Whether she had been a fervent supporter of the empire, whether he was active in so-called Movimento Jugoslavofilo, pro-Yugoslav movements, or in the Socialist Party. The judgment on the reliability of the women employee was given on the basis of the reliability of their father or husband, not recognizing any autonomy. Another aspect for which the investigation of women differs from those on men is related to the moral question. The control of employees' morals was a practice in Italian public administration, but in the Julian March, officials underlined in several cases that the necessity of control as fundamental to the very legitimacy of the institution with respect to those who were to become the new citizens of the kingdom. Controls by the authorities focused not so much on private habits, but on what was said and known from women's private lives among information and neighbors. To argue the dubia morale, moral dubiousness, the following behaviors were underlined. She frequents soldiers or colleagues. She has car trips with soldiers. She lived alone. She was receiving visitors in her room. All this information was collected by the Carabinieri, or directly by superiors, and was constantly updated to be used in case of recalls or dismissals. As far as new hearings are concerned, it appears that the employees were all born in Julian March, or were renicole, Italian citizenship, who had lived in the region before the war. This shows a considerable availability in the local labor market, due both to the high rate of female schooling and the concomitant industrial crisis and unemployment. When female staff left the public administration, this could take place for many reasons. What emerged, however, is a clear tendency on the part of the authorities to reduce the number of female staff, especially after 1920. In conjunction with the economic crisis, the protest of civil servants, and the increasingly pressing demands of veterans to get a job. With the continuation of the economic crisis, this demand was strengthened and focused and found support in the fascist press, and also in some officials. In January 1921, the Questore of Trieste wrote in an internal note, I quote, it would be opportune to eliminate female personnel from the Questura, end of quote. This attitude was due to a clash for job on a sexual basis, in which women were the target of the unemployed and the fascists. As in the kingdom, the decisive passage came with the Regio Decreto of 28 January 1923, which provided for the revision of the recruitment and accommodation of personnel made after 24 May 1915. In this way, the women who entered the service after the outbreak of the war were mainly affected. While this was the general trend with respect of the labor market and the progressive exclusion of women from it, other factors related to the gender issue also had an impact on the voluntary resignation and dismissal of employees during the period under consideration. They were forced to resign, to care for their families, for crisi nevrasteniche, nervous breakdown or anemia, for pregnancy. From the end of 1919, in case of marriage, they were fired. For this reason, many tried to hide the union that often take place with colleagues of the public administration or with the soldiers. It must be said that married women already employed were not fired because an Austrian law still in force allowed them to keep their jobs. Another aspect that needs to be taken into account is the issue of citizenship. With the Legge Decree of 20th January 1922, the oath for state employees was extended to the new provinces. In order to be sworn in, it was necessary to be in possession of its Italian citizenship. An emblematic case of the situation in which female personnel could find themselves in these crucial phases of transition is offered to us by the file of L.M., born in Arbe in 1986, who had studied in Florence. In 1910, she legally separated from her husband. After fleeing to Rome during the war, she was hired by the Governatorato in 1919. In June 1923, she was dismissed because a married woman could not be kept in service even if legally separated from her husband. In addition, her husband was an Austrian citizen. And for this reason, the woman could not obtain Italian citizenship, despite the recommendation of Senatore Giorgio Pitacco and intervention of the Consiglio delle Donne Italiane. For the donne in fatica, donne in servizio, a term which encompasses various tasks such as the roles of porter, cleaning lady, and school janitor, and prison guards, the transition from Austrian to Italian administration did not bring about major changes in working conditions. They were not always investigated to ascertain their political conduct and national feelings. Unlike female employees, for whom, as we have seen, celibacy was required, women in the service were almost always widows, with dependent children and or husbands unable to work. In several cases, they were illegitimate daughters. They were on average 35–40 years old and didn't not work for longer than 2 years, except in rare cases. The prison guards identified here represent only a part of those in service. The complete data are difficult to identify due to several factors, including the dispersion of files during the transition phase and the subsequent transfer of prison management to the relevant ministry. Several of these cases identified are temporary recruitment to replace the Turing staff or to provide supervision for women in prison where there was not female section. To conclude, as can be seen, the Italian administration was immediately careful to assess the reliability of the employees of the administration, with particular regard to national and political issues. For women, these factors, which, as we said, were assessed on the basis of the reliability of the head of the family, were added to the morale, a changeable aspect that also varied according to the areas and the relationship between the local population and the military and the Italian administration. The annexation of the Julian March to Italy marked a series of steps back in the process of women's emancipation from what were the rights that they enjoyed in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The role of the head of the family became central. Legislation was bent to implement a selection and then a gradual expulsion of female personnel from the world of work. Thank you very much.